Panama Papers once again now. It says tax investigators from right around the world are meeting here in Paris, in fact, today to launch an unprecedented inquiry into the scandal. Lots of talk about it, isn't there, Flo, in the international papers?
That's right. It's on the front page of The Guardian today, this meeting of tax officials from 28 countries. The Guardian says it's a hastily arranged meeting in the wake, of course, of those Panama Papers we've been telling you so much about. They're going to essentially try to find a way to work together to crack down on tax offenders across the world. And in the meantime, they're going to try to analyze this very huge bulk of data together. The Guardian, in its editorial, applauds this aggressive new approach, as it calls it. It says the best solution, really, to avoid tax dodging around the world would be to harmonize taxes across national borders. That, of course, is very controversial politically. So in the meantime, what's needed is more transparency, according to The Guardian, and also for countries to be very harsh when it comes to loopholes. Half-hearted efforts won't work. The Guardian says the global system is only as strong as its weakest link, and so that's why it's important to be hard with these loopholes.
And meanwhile, the French version of Slate, they're calling on taxpayers across the world to do their part, if you like, in the battle against tax evasion.
That's right. Let's take a look at this article. It says, "Taxpayers of the world unite." This is an article by the U.S. academic Frederick DeBoer, actually, in the French version of Slate here. And he says the Panama Papers have confirmed what we already knew, that the world's elite are a bunch of liars and cheaters. And he says, are the masses finally going to wake up? For some people, the Panama Papers are kind of like when your parents told you that Santa Claus doesn't exist. It kind of confirmed something that you already knew. And according to this article, the game is rigged unless you're part of the 1%. And that 1% is a very interesting group of people because they don't actually have that much in common other than the fact that they can kind of slip around the world as well as they want. He talks about the new cosmopolitanism, the kind of new 21st century international community, essentially people rich enough to not belong to any nation. And let's take a look at a cartoon in the New York Times by Chapat, also poking fun at these tax evaders. You can see this guy walking down this red carpet towards an offshore plane there, people talking about how he's a thief, pay your taxes. Hey, he says, this is money I made honestly in the subprime market.
Let's move on to something completely different, shall we? This is a survey on Britain's Muslim population. It's getting a lot of attention in the UK, also abroad as well, isn't it?
That's right. This is a survey of 1,081 Muslim adults that was conducted actually for the Channel 4 in the UK. But you can see some of these results have also come out in the Times. And you can see that the Times says that the survey reveals a chasm between Muslim values and the rest of the UK. According to this survey, 52% of people in this survey, for instance, believe that homosexuality should be illegal. Just under a third think that polygamy should be legalized. 23% are in favor of replacing British law with Sharia law in certain areas, and under 4% sympathize with suicide bombers who fight injustice. So as you can imagine, this survey is getting a lot of attention. The Wall Street Journal actually focuses on what it calls Britain's Muslim problem today in their editorial. This new survey shows an alarming failure to assimilate in the UK, and it's sparking a discussion about a state within a state.
Another paper's quite critical of the survey, actually, particularly about the way it was actually carried out.
That's right. The statistics are skewed, according to an article by Mikdal Versi in The Independent. He's from the Muslim Council of Britain. He says the poll is skewed and divisive. And the main problem is with the sample. Those 1,081 Muslims I was talking to you about, essentially they're coming from an area where they make up at least 20% of the population. And so they're likely to be less integrated with their neighbors. And so the sample is skewed, and therefore the results aren't really indicative of what the rest of British society is really like. Now, other people who took to social media to perhaps criticize the survey in a less scientific way and a more humorous way. You can read more about that in The Guardian. The hashtag "What Muslims Really Think" became quite a trend online, quite comical. People talking about everyday things, banal things like potholes and et cetera. My favorite one, though, was hashtag what British Muslims really think. Do I look fat in this hijab?
That's probably true. You're probably right. Finally, we're going to end with another article. This is in The Guardian. It's about online abuse.
That's right. This is really a fascinating article that I've seen shared all over social media today. It's a study that was carried out of almost 70 million comments posted on The Guardian's website over the past decade. And you can see the results here. Gender and race appear to be key factors in attracting abusive comments, essentially, regardless of what the article is actually about. If an article is written by a woman, it's probably going to attract a higher proportion of blocked comments, while white men writing for The Guardian attract the least amount of blocked comments. Now, The Guardian, this is part of a series, actually, a very interesting series in The Guardian these days called The Web We Want, where The Guardian is trying to raise awareness of this kind of online abuse and foster a better conversation online.
Raising a bit of awareness of that issue. Flo on France 24. Thanks.